General Kristoffersen, thank you for returning to the United States Army War College and joining us today. On behalf of the staff and faculty and the United States Army War College, class of 2020, we offer you our most sincere congratulations for your designation as the 69th member of our International Hall of Fame. General Kristoffersen, General Kim, please join me on stage for our Hall of Fame induction. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as General Kim inducts General Kristoffersen into our International Fellows Hall of Fame. Begin the unveiling, sir or gentlemen. The United States Army War College, in recognition of outstanding military achievement, hereby inducts Major General Eirik Kristoffersen, Chief of the Norwegian Army, into the U.S. Army War College International Fellows Hall of Fame by order of the Commandant, Major General John S. Kim, dated 18 October 2019. General Kristoffersen, sir, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much for reminding me of how much I engaged in hunting and running and soccer instead of reading during my time at the War College. It's great to be back. Thank you, General. Thank you for hosting us. Thanks to the visitors, General Jensen, my Australian colleague, I guess, in the past some time, and from Greece. Thank you for being here, from Magne and René, and thanks to the leadership and staff of the War College for doing all this. I'm very happy to see George and Beth again. They have meant so much for Norwegian officers throughout the years, sponsoring Norwegians since 2007-8 until this summer, but they still keep sponsoring, sort of shadow sponsoring Norwegians forever in the future. So it's great to have you here. It's good to be back. I would say that the importance of the education here is something you don't realize until you have graduated. I was concerned more about finishing off my readings and doing my writings and getting out for a beer at the Market Cross pub on Friday than actually anything else. But we were a bunch of international officers, including Simon Stewart from Australia, who got together every Friday. And some Americans joined us later on, and we actually sat down and talked through the last week's readings, and that really helped me. I think you realize, once you have graduated, how much you actually have learned. It's hard to see it through the year, but you realize it sooner than later. Being in a seminar, to me, is just like being in a senior leadership engagement. It's the same way the Chief of Defense of Norway runs his decision-making. He does it through seminars. It doesn't call it seminars, but we sit together, a group of people, 2 stars, 3 stars, and the Chief of Defense, and we talk through different problems. And we do it in a seminar-like way. And I think that's been my most, greatest benefit for me, who has attended both the U.S. Marine Corps Command and Staff College and now the U.S. Army War College, is actually the seminar experience, where you interact with others. If you use that experience every day in the seminar, if you do your readings and you are prepared, you can learn so much from the seminar situation that will help you throughout your career. Because you have to listen to others, you have to interact with others, you have to understand the viewpoints, and then get into a decision. I think that's something we didn't stress that much when I was a student, but in backside, I think that's the greatest thing I brought with me further on, because it's actually the way it works. I see so many senior officers who goes down and forget that they are generals. they become the tactical general instead of the strategic corporal. So we need strategic generals who can understand and see the environment and see the others. So it's important. And the other thing is, of course, the network. I have Juris here from Latvia, who I know before, and a lot of other friends. And the network I established during the war college has helped me a lot. And it's an even better program for the international officers than for the Americans, because we get to know everybody, even before you start the academic year. So it's great. So thank you very much for that. I cannot be here without saying anything about Norway. So I prepared to say something about the Norwegian Army and Norway. And excuse me for doing this, because it's very focused on Norway, but I think also you can maybe learn something from it, because I'm giving it from a small state perspective, with a Russian border to the east, with a Russian neighbor. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you. And being admitted into the US Army War College Hall of Fame is, of course, a great privilege. And I do not take that for granted. I have now been in command of my nation's army for a very short time. But it is just as much a responsibility as it is a reward to be Chief of the Army. And being included in this Hall of Fame sort of signifies this responsibility. As I said, I'm just about 2 months into my new position as Chief of the Norwegian Army. However, the Norwegian Army is an old organization. It was established by the Norwegian Army law in 1628, 391 years ago. And the point is that the Army needs to develop all the time. It has been developed ever since 1628, and we need to focus on that. And there will always be an army capable to exert power on any territory. The question is, today, if it is your own army or someone else's. The size, equipment, and capability of a nation's army are very closely connected to its international relations. Alliances, how we are perceived by friends and foes, and our nation's sovereignty. So the army itself symbolizes more than just the combat power. One of the first things that happened after I took over command was that I was asked to review a book. Not the most common thing to ask a newly appointed commander, but this was no regular book either. The book was about Army Commander Otto Ruge, who is a biography about the command in general in Norway in 1940, when Nazi Germany occupied Norway, or invaded Norway. The book was interesting because I think it has a relevance for a wide audience, especially today. And as we know, the heroes of World War II are slowly disappearing from our rank and file. I had the privilege to have dinner with one of them 2 weeks ago, but there are few left now. And soon they will all be gone. And the war in Norway showed us the best and worst of humanity. And it was in this context, invaded by a larger force, that General Otto Ruge, the army commander in Norway, operated, making military decisions, acutely aware of the political context and what was needed to achieve to get the most out of what was possible in any given circumstance. And I think that's the balance we need to strike between being a senior officer and politics. I think in his understanding of the relationship between the military and politics, he had a lot of common with the American General George Marshall. They both understood their role fully, both its opportunities and limitations. And once you understand that, it is actually possible to achieve great things. If you only focus on one thing, the military side of it, without understanding politics, you will not achieve what you want. At the beginning of World War II in Norway was neutral. April 9, 1940. We still say in Norway, never again, April 9. When the first shots were fired in the outer rim of the Oslo Fjord in the early April 40, we had been at peace for 126 years. The Norwegian, our approach had worked for a long time, but the winds on the world stage blew up a storm, and as a small country, we were not in a position to choose non-engagement anymore. And Norway had friends, for sure, but we didn't have allies. Allies are something more than friends. The war taught us an expensive and important lesson. We need allies, and that is why we have been strong supporters of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, since it was established in 1949, 70 years ago today, or this year. Today, we see that the winds on the world stage are again beginning to increase in strength, and as a small state, Norway must navigate with a clear head. The reality of geopolitics as an underlying driver for world events is once again at the forefront of our strategic analysis. Climate change is real in Norway, and what is known as the Northwest Passage is opening up for commercial shipping. The ice cap that used to keep this passageway north of Russia shut for most of the year is disappearing, and the fastest way from Asia to the Atlantic Ocean, with access to both European and American markets, goes just along our long coast. China is very much aware of this. The Belt and Road Initiative, China's plan to connect the world's infrastructure, to collect raw materials and access markets, has a clear Arctic dimension and high ambitions of engagement. So China is the one thing Norway is focusing on, even though we are long away from China today. With the Northwest Passage, it will change. Russia, our neighbor, has its strategic center of gravity on the Kola Peninsula. With its submarine-based nuclear second strike capability located right there on our border. This is in our immediate surroundings, less than 100 miles from our border. Russia's revisionist ambitions to regain major power status, its deterrence strategy and security is existentially dependent on the area close to the Norwegian border. And this is Norwegian home turf. It is in this Arctic and subarctic environment that our soldiers need to be the best in the world. 20 years in the future, our dimensioning threat in Norway will still be up there in the north, across cold plains, sparsely populated and with few roads on which to travel. An armed conflict here is Norway's worst case. My army's, or the Norwegian Army's, future paradox, is that this dimensioning threat in the north requires very different capabilities than the environment of our allies. And therefore, most likely, Norwegian forces will most frequently be the military involved in operations elsewhere than in the Arctic. The Army must be able to master both the desolate cold at all intensity levels and be able to work with allies in denser, warmer, and wetter areas, like the emerging megacities of the world, mostly around the equator belt. Both our present and our future is joint. I do not see any relevant operation that does not include elements across the defense branches. If there is something in my background in the Special Forces learned me, it's the need for jointness. Not only that, I already mentioned allies. Our operations will not only be joint, but they will be combined joint. And we are already working across multiple borders and need to further the understanding at all levels that we will always operate together. That's why this program is so great. Our defense uses taxpayer money, and we must strive always to deliver the best possible value for this investment. Therefore, the Norwegian Army, even if we are increasing now our budgets, we must continuously adapt and change. If we become stagnant, adapted to the challenges of one singular time, or over-focused on one particular challenge, we will not be able to solve our mission, and we will not be relevant. Going forward with I say mine now, because it's mine, my army, I will of course focus on increased readiness, perseverance to hold the Norwegian territory until Allied reinforcement can arrive if needed. At the same time, continued contributions to NATO missions, and I need a clear presence on the border to Russia. It is along these lines we need to strengthen our capabilities in Norway. Our job, all of us, our primary job is to prevent war. Secondly, to win one if it comes our way. In Norway, we must provide security for the entire country, from the border in our north to the southernmost tip. This requires an understanding of our geography, combined with a flexible structure and mobility to reach every part of it with the small army I have left. Back to World War II. King Haakon allegedly said to General Ruge, the general I mentioned in the beginning, so the king said in 1940, because it was a question, should we surrender, should we capitulate, what should we do, should we fight? They decided to fight. He said to General Ruge in 1940 that defense was closely related to our national self-regard, how we viewed ourselves. I believe this is a great insight. What are we really willing to do in order to keep our freedom and protect what we hold dear? We are again at a turning point in history when great forces are shifting and the future is increasingly difficult to predict. From my point of view, my army, the Norwegian Army, is ready to do its part, combined, joint, whatever the future brings. To the students, use the opportunity now. This is your year. I have had 4 different positions, assignments, since I left the War College. So it's been like a speed dating process, meeting different people. But use the year. People say there is only much reading if you read it. I don't agree. I think you should read it, but it's depending on how much you actually read. I read my papers, some of them very quick, but I read them. And I think that's one of the capabilities I actually developed during this year, the ability to grasp something in a short time, which has been very important later on. General, the leadership of the War College, it's great to be back. I'm going to go for a run later on. I try to challenge Larry Goodson on a soccer match, but we'll see. I don't know if the time is ready. To my son and daughter, thank you for being here today. It means a lot. I had to pick up my daughter at Penn State University yesterday, so it was another drive, 3-hour drive up there, but great to have you here. Good luck to all of you, and thank you very much for letting me be part of this. Thank you.